Hello, people. Just want to share with you something that came to mind this morning when I was reading the Bible about Pharaoh in Genesis 41, where he had the dreams about the 7 years good and the 7 years of bad times. And then it's like I just experiencing while I'm reading this about the times to come. The 7 years that's been talking about in Revelations. And yesterday I saw this lady, a tech lady. She's all about the tech and the future and what's happening in the world and what. And she looks at lives of politicians and influential people. And she discovered there's one guy that is talking about the implants they want to do with the chips that can control and track people and all that. Now you think that is that's a thing that's been around for a while now, and yeah, I know about that since 2003 or 2009. I cannot remember what came first. The videos that wouldn't send around and all that stuff. I never really considered them until just before lockdown. God told me to move from a area we were living in. And he said there's going to be a bad time that's going to be on its way. And we need to be with family. We need to be close with family because we're going to need each other. We need to depend on each other in that stage. And it happened. Not even knowing that the world will hit a point where everything is to total lockdown. 3 months before lockdown even came, God said, pack up your stuff and leave. And I was with a client in a certain area, 1,000 so kilometers away from where my family was. And yeah, I mean, that was just the start of what's happening, and that's still to come. So God, what's kind of got my attention, God spoke to Pharaoh in a dream. The man that's ruling the world at that stage, you could say, the municipality or the people in control. And a lot of times we say, well, then that must be quite a good person, because God spoke to him. But then let's go back to where Joseph were the one that sold the crops at the end of the day, when the bad years came. See, Pharaoh wanted to be in control, just like the principalities ruling the world today wants to be in control. They want to know your every day and every movement. And then you can say, but what's so bad about it? It's not like we're hiding anything. See, it's not just about what you're hiding, according to this lady speaking. It's about what worth you are. They're going to determine your worth about how you spend your day and with what you spend it with. So let's say you are a rich person or wealthy, you have enough money just to get by or whatever, enough so that you can maybe go to the beach or have a walk in the park now and then. Then they're going to say, okay, that's not what determines your worth, because there isn't such thing as currency anymore. Your bank doesn't mean nothing, according to the lady. And of course, this is what it's going to be going to. I also experience or feel. It's the same with the situation, and why for the couple of past years I keep reading Genesis. And eventually I asked God, why Genesis? I mean, we should actually, and that's how I felt at that stage, and we should actually read Mark, Luke, and Matthew, and John, and those. We need to be disciples to spread the gospel. That's the purpose of our being since Jesus told us to be disciples. But then it came to mind one day what Jesus said. He said in the end days, just before he came, this is what you should consider and look at. The days will be like Sodom and Gomorrah, and like the days in Noah. Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of Noah. The standard and the morality of people. Now, I'm not telling people, I don't even think that's part of the gospel, to go around, tell people to live morally correct. What's the point of people living morally correct, but they don't know God? You see, moral values is a result of people that knows God. And for years, even when I grew up, while I was growing up, I actually noticed this. And I was focused on that, and that was the doctrine I also been teaching and going around, telling people to be a good boy, stay at home, just do what you should do, and don't do what you shouldn't do. Until I realized in my life, I still have something missing. I have a void. Acceptance, this is actually a very dangerous thing with religion, is you experience acceptance. And because you experience acceptance from people, say, oh, you're such a good boy, you're just doing things right. You become a religious. And you seek, that fills the void. That's why we really need to know what do we actually, do we know God? Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line of everything. To come to the point where you realize morally correct or moral values and righteousness, being righteous, is like moral values, but moral values has more than just one definition where you can say you don't smoke, live sexually immoral, or what, and that's being righteous. No, there's more than that. Let's see or go back to Genesis 41 with Pharaoh. He wasn't a righteous man. God showed him a dream, and then through that, Joseph got into control, second into command, to save the righteous people. That's why in the end of the day, when Pharaoh looked at these guys running and say, hey Pharaoh, we need you, we want food, then he says, go to Joseph. Joseph will determine what you should pay. Because he was righteous. God knew of the time that will come when we need righteous people. And yeah, we should really come to a point where we really see God's opinion and not people's opinion. See, I can stand in front of you and give you my opinion. Whether I'm wrong or right, it will not save you. Moral values won't save you. Knowing God will save you. Physically and the afterlife. I would have probably perished if I didn't listen to God when He said, move back to your parents and your sister and all of them, where they already were close together. And there was times they depended on me, and there was times that I depended on them. And so we helped each other. I would have maybe, let's say, die of hunger. I would have still gone to heaven. but then I hadn't fulfilled my purpose on this planet. See, the kingdom of God is both spiritual on this earth, and then the heaven. When we die, that's also a kingdom of God, the heaven. But we should experience both places. Just off the topic, actually. Now I need to get back on the topic. Yes, so I experienced 7 years. I've heard a couple of guys also came to the conclusion or experienced it that there is going to be a few bad times on its way, and tribulation, enforcing people, like the same with rights. What is human rights? If we look at the definition of people promoting human rights today, it's only certain people that's allowed to speak. They make it out that if you're a Christian, you are pointing the finger. I know there is people that live religiously, and they've tried to enforce people to live morally correct. That's not going to save them anyway. And you make sure you are saved, because what's the point of you pointing the finger if God said don't judge? You see, sometimes Christianity is just a word. Talking is cheap. Do you know God or don't you? And that's something you have to determine for yourself. I cannot say it. We can, as if you live spiritually, you can determine people's motives by the fruit they bear. But it's not for us to go around judging. Only thing we can do is in salvation, you need to hear from God. What's the point of I'm trying to convince somebody if he already made up his mind? Some people know God exists, they just hate him. I see this other guy on Facebook. He's a funny guy, so I listen to his funny jokes. But you can see he already decided he hates God, because he declares God. If God comes up on his channel or something about God, and he says, I hate that guy again, I hate him, and I don't want that on my channel. So he already made a decision. What's the point of ministering to a man who made the decision? You can show him love and everything, because that's the only way you can actually spread the gospel, because God is love. You spread the gospel through love. And I know there's a lot of debates about this. Who cares? Again, off topic. Yeah. Back to the 7 years. Let's seek God. That's all I can say. We can listen to 1,000 people's opinion. Because I know when I grew up, if a tree falls in your backyard, then they say the rapture is on its way. Every time there's a storm or just a mention of a war going on, then they say the rapture is on its way. But isn't that what Jesus said, what not to look for? They're going to say in those days, or they're going to say after, nature, what do you call it? But anyway, wars and nature problems are going to occur, floods and stuff. They're going to keep on telling you, hey, floods and war, and then he says, Jesus says, but don't listen to that, because that will always happen, from here till the end. But if you want to know the time, look at the day of Sodom and Gomorrah, what happened there, and look at the day of Noah, what happened there. When the standard of humanity reaches that point, where young and old men want to force their way in a house to rape 2 other men, When it comes to that point, then you know. Because if you look and follow the trend of what's running and the culture, the point is not pointing finger and say, hey, you're doing wrong. That's not what's going to concern them. You can offend them just by saying, I don't want to be part of it. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be that man breaking down the door. Oh, you're offending me. Well, why not? What is wrong? We are animals. We are instinctively doing what we think we should be doing. Why are you offending me? Whatever, offending me. If we listen to people when we were growing up or now or whatever, they say, or they that physic or pointing finger and even calling names or even criticizing these guys or people that's involving in murdering and the what's the point? That's not spreading the gospel. And then we as church or people that grew up spiritually with God are sometimes being misled by this because we think that we should be that guy pointing finger. When we come to the 7 years of tribulation or whatever, some people believe before, after, what doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you believe. Because you see, if God made the decision, it's going to be like that, whether you believe it or not. Then you're going to see that the truth. I think I made my point. Have a great day. See you in the next one.